Hi, I'm Ryan Wieber, and this is my tutorial showing you my method for creating lightsaber glows in Adobe After Effects. Before we really get into anything, I'd first like to thank Steve, aka Link64PD, on the TFN boards. Without his help developing the method, this tutorial wouldn't be possible, so thanks, Steve. Alright, let's dive right in. As you can see, I've already got my good old picture of Qui-Gon over here in a composition that is set to the same pixel size as the image I'm working on here. Alright, let's start by going into Layer and choosing a new solid, and we're going to want it to be white. So just make sure it's all the way up there. Okay, that. Make sure to set to the composition size, and then OK it. Now this is going to end up being our lightsaber core itself, after we select where the lightsaber is using a mask. So let's just pluck out that layer's eye so we don't have to look at it and we can see through to Qui-Gon. Select the pen tool from the toolbox. Make sure the solids layer is selected, and now we're going to go ahead and draw our saber right on there using the pen tool. So go on in and click all the corners of the saber to draw the core. And now we'll pick the arrow tool from the toolbox, poke that eye again, deselect that layer to get that yellow outline out of there, and now you can see what looks like the core of our saber. Now my Qui-Gon2.jpg layer down here is just an image, but if you're working with video, the saber would obviously be moving. Now let's say for instance that out here at 15 frames, Qui-Gon's saber was fanning out like this, say. What you could do is just click on the solids layer, make sure that's highlighted, undo its little twirly here, open up masks, mask 1, and then click the stopwatch for mask shape. Now that's going to allow us to set keyframes for it so it can change over time. Let's slide it out to 15 frames, make a keyframe for that, and now we can change its shape to whatever it is at that frame in time. So let's click on nothing to deselect everything, then click the layer again. Now you can click the corner of the mask that you want to manipulate, then grab it and drag it to change it however you think it should be. And just manipulate it however you like. Click away to deselect everything, and as you can see, After Effects fills in the frames in between for you. Now that's the real strength of rotoscoping in After Effects, and the advantage it has over, say, Photoshop and other applications. It's really the only one you can say isn't frame by frame rotoscoping, because you're setting keyframes all the time, and After Effects is doing a lot of the work for you. Well, that's all well and good, but for the purposes of this tutorial, let's just leave it on the first frame, collapse this all up, and we're really going to focus on the glow for just this one individual frame. Now we're going to select your footage or image layer down here, and we're going to copy it. Now we're going to go into composition and make a new composition. Leave all the settings exactly the same as the one you already have open. Now make sure the time indicator is on the first frame, and we're going to paste that footage or your image right into it. And if this were your video, it would be perfectly trimmed just like it was in the first composition, so that both comps are almost exactly the same. The only difference between the two is that in composition 1, you've got your lightsaber core drawn. Now the next thing we're going to do is make sure you've got your footage or image layer selected, and we're going to delete it. Now as soon as you do this, always remember to go into Layer, make a new solid, and make a black solid that is the same size as the composition, and place it beneath your lightsaber core. Don't worry about the quality of this layer because it's all black pixels. There's really nothing to look crappy. Now the reason we're doing this is because this composition in the end is going to get nested over composition 2, and its transfer mode is going to be set to screen. Now without this new solid we made, it does look black, but it only appears to be black. It is actually transparent, and After Effects is representing transparency with black. It is not truly black, and when you go to screen it, it will not give the auras color in the end. So this is a very important step that must not be avoided. Alright, now if you're familiar with my Photoshop method, you probably guessed that the next step is to take our saber core layer, and we're going to duplicate it, not once, not twice, but thrice. And this first layer here is going to be our core, and the next 3 will be the aura layers after they have been blurred. Now let's go into the first layer and open up masks, mask 1, and we're going to give it a feather of about 1. Now this is just to take the hard edge off of the core, and you can't see it here because we've got 3 other layers behind it, but it does make it a little bit softer and a little more real looking. Now I'll take this opportunity to bring up a point that must be made. I'm working on a small picture here. You will probably be working on video or images that are at least twice the size, and these feathering numbers are definitely going to change for you in your compositions. As I always say in relation to my tutorials, you must tinker with it. You've got to play around and find what looks good, what looks best, and go with that. Alrighty. Now let's go into Solid 2 here. Open up Masks, Mask 1, and we're going to give this one a feather of 10. This is the first of the oral layers. Now, if you're not sure what radius to begin blurring by, a good rule of thumb is that you can go right into Composition and choose Save Frame As File, then open that image in Photoshop, and then use the line tool to determine what the width of your core is, and likewise what a good blur for your first layer here should be. So once we've got that layer appropriately feathered, let's open up the second one. Masks, Mask 1, give that one a feather of 20, which is of course double the one before it. Let's close that one up as well. Now let's open up our third oral layer. Now if you give this one a feather of 30, as is dictated in the 1 to 2 to 3 blur ratio, as I call it, established in the Photoshop tutorial, results could look better, you'll find. And in After Effects, I found that a blur ratio of 1 to 2 to 4 often yields better results. So I recommend giving that one a blur that is twice as much as the one before it as well. So in this instance, we have blurs of 10, 20, 40, or if you began with 5, say, you'd go 5, 10, 20, etc. So it's very strange how After Effects treats blurring and feathering a bit differently than Photoshop does. But hey, you gotta roll with the punches on that. Alright, so now we've got something that does indeed look like a lightsaber here, ready to be screened onto our footage. So let's click into Composition 2 here, grab Composition 1, and plop it right into this window. Make sure it is snapping to the center. First thing, make sure the quality is set to good. Go up into Layer, Transfer Mode, and Screen. Now, all that's left is to give it some color. Let's go into Effects, Adjust, Color Balance. Okay. Make sure the Preserve Luminosity is set, and we're going to go and punch up the midtones and the highlights for the color that we want. So let's just grab the midtones for green, haul them all the way up, and go into the highlights for green and top those out at 50. Looks good. Close that up and take a look. Looks like we've got a nice looking After Effects generated lightsaber. This is giving you very similar results to the Photoshop method, which I think look great. And if we drag our time indicator over here, you can see that over time the glow has of course been applied to all the frames, even the ones we have keyframed to change over time. Well, alright, I hope you die-hard After Effects rotoscopers out there will get some better results using this method or a variation of it, and even newcomers to After Effects. Hope you've learned something from this and that I've made your life just a little bit easier. Get out there and kick some butt. Have fun.